Naiharam, produced by snow. Chadyota Achahi, the light of a glowworm. Iva, just as. Ahani, in the daytime, in the sunlight. Mahati, in a great personality. Itara Maya, inferior mystic power. Aishyam, the ability. Nihanti, destroys. Atmani, in his own self. Yunjataha, of the person who attempts to use. Translation: as the darkness of snow on a dark night, and the light of a glowworm in the light of day have no value, the mystic power of an inferior person who tries to use it against a person of great power is unable to accomplish anything. Instead, the power of that inferior person is diminished. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When one wants to supersede a superior power, one's own inferior power becomes ludicrous. Just as a glowworm in the daytime and snow at night have no value, Brahma's mystic power became worthless in the presence of Krishna, for a greater mystic power condemns inferior mystic power. On a dark night, the darkness produced by snow has no meaning. The glowworm appears very important at night, but in the daytime its glow has no value. Whatever little value it has is lost. Similarly, Brahma became insignificant in the presence of Krishna's mystic power. Krishna's Maya was not diminished in value, but Brahma's Maya was condemned. Therefore, one should not try to exhibit one's insignificant opulence before a greater power. Umayananditibinandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrahaja. Excuse me. Shri Rupam's. I lost it. Excuse me. We'll start again. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Salitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Vitam Cha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosinte Tamta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hariprihe Vanchakalpa Churiyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langayate garim, jatripatalam vande Shri Gurun Divatananam. So this is always I think, a delightful pastime where Krishna exhibits such amazing mystic power in this on all levels, and as we see for a whole year, he expands himself as all the cowherd boys and all the calves, and interacts with the whole of Vrindavan during that time. And in that regard, there's the principle that Krishna achieves many results in one activity. So everyone in Vrindavan loves Krishna, and everyone, all of the parents, they all dream of having Krishna as their child. And so Krishna's aware of everyone's desire, and he satisfies everyone's desire. So for 1 year continuously, all the mothers and all of the fathers of Vrindavan actually had Krishna as their child in their home every day. And of course, all the cows were completely captivated by their calves, not knowing that these calves were all expansions of Krishna. And the cowherd men, there's one description of how just near the end of the year, when they're walking near Govardhan Hill, and the cows on the hill became overwhelmed with affection for their calves, and they came running down the hill, and the cowherd men couldn't control them, so they were all running down. There was milk coming out of their milk bags, and when they got to the calves were suckling, and initially the cowherd men were a little agitated because it was a disruption of the situation, but once they got down there and amongst their sons, they were all completely captivated by the boys. And they were smelling their heads and patting them and feeling very happy, very, very happy. And of course, there's so many other things about this pastime. One that's always very what's the word? Captivating, I think is the word. That Brahma, he's only gone for a moment. He steals all the cowherd boys and all the cows, and he puts them to sleep in a cave, and then he comes back to see how Krishna's reacted, and nothing's changed. 1 whole year, the Krishna's carried on the life of Vrindavan, and so Brahma comes back, and there's all the cowherd boys, as if, and he's completely bewildered by this. He's completely bewildered that I just took them all away. They're all asleep in a cave, and now here they are. And then Krishna puts on an exhibition of such bewildering potencies, where suddenly all of the calves, and all the cowherd boys, they all take on a blue complexion, and they all expand as Vishnu forms, and then from the Vishnu forms, all the demigod forms are manifest, and it's like a volcano of mystic potencies, just one after the other, one coming up out of the other. And Brahma is totally dumbfounded. He sees himself in it. He sees himself in this. And in the Krishna book, there's a description of how he sees himself simply as a product of the material image. He sees his own body there, and he realizes how puny and insignificant he is. And the most wonderful thing about all of this is it's true. This is, I think, the thing which, for me, as more and more time goes by, practicing Krishna consciousness, um, the more astonishing it is that this is real, that this is reality. This is not in any way, shape, or form imagination. Krishna is exactly who he says he is. Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mai savamitam protam sutre maniganariva. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Anadir Adir. He has no beginning, but he's the beginning of everything. Krishna is Anadir Adi. And there is no beginning to Krishna's existence. But all that exists has its beginning in Krishna. Sutre Maniganariva. Sutre means a string. So everything is resting on me as pearls are strung on a thread. So simple, that image, but so complete that everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. And you never see the thread. You see the string of pearls, the beautiful string of pearls, but you don't see the thread. But without the thread, there's no string of pearls. So without Krishna, there's nothing. Actually, to even say without Krishna is impossible, because in order to be able to say that, Krishna has to exist. This idea of nothing is so pernicious, because as Prabhupada's pranams say, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarane, being counteracted by Gauravani Pracharane, Lord Chaitanya's teachings. This pranam completely defined Srila Prabhupada's mission. And Srila Prabhupada's mission was to defeat this all-pervasive Mayavad philosophy, impersonalism and voidism. And this is one thing one has to really come to terms with as one gets involved with practicing Krishna consciousness, and that is that everything now is pervaded with impersonal, voidist philosophy. The idea that there is a personal God, that God even exists beyond any conception of just energy. I'm having a kind of debate with a young person who's getting involved in Krishna consciousness, and they're finding it very difficult to accept the form of Krishna, the personality of Krishna. The first thing they said in this regard is that why the deity? Why does God have to be a person? And why male? All these questions are there. And this is because of deep attachment to matter. What is that verse? Vitaraga bayakroda manmaya madhupashrita bahavo jnana tapasa pupta madbhavamagataha. Krishna says, being free from attachment, fear, and anger. Many persons in the past, well, what is the exact translation? I was in chapter 4, verse 10. Vitaraga bayakroda manmaya madhupashrita. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me. And thus they all attained transcendental love for me. And Prabhupada deals with this issue of attachment, fear, and anger in the first part of the purport, where he says these are the three phases of attachment to the material world. first of all, attachment to matter itself. And he makes a very powerful statement at the beginning of the purport where he says, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the supreme absolute truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialists cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic conception, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the Supreme to be impersonal. And because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. Frightens them. And this is all, as Prabhupada used to say, is all because of a poor fund of knowledge. You come across this with impersonalists, impersonalist philosophers, people who espouse impersonal philosophy. They talk about how you have to dissolve the ego. You have to dissolve your ego. Well, in a sense, that's true, but they don't understand the concept of false ego. They think the idea that I am is an illusion, that really I can only be happy when I cease to exist. This is crazy philosophy. When you really, and the other point about it all is you can't hear impersonalist philosophy except from another person. There has to be a person to tell you that ultimately everything's impersonal. So the reason why this is because of a poor fund of knowledge. That verse, Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dananjaya mai savavidam protam sutre maniganariva, is the fourth verse of a sequence of verses in the 7th chapter where Krishna lays it out. The bhumir apo nalo vayu kamano buddhir evacha ahankara. That these 8 things, bhumir apo nalo vayu kamano buddhir evacha ahankara iti yangme bina prakritirashtara. That these are my 8 separated material energies. So they don't have this knowledge that I exist, but right now I exist under the illusion that I am this body. Because the material coverings of the soul begin with the false ego. You acquire a false ego, a false sense of what you are in relationship to the combination of elements that you're living in. That's really clearly explained in the 15th chapter in 3 verses where Krishna begins saying, Mamari Vangsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manashastan Indriyani Prakriti Stani Kashati. The living entities in this conditional world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to the conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses, which include the mind. Then we have Sariram Yad Vapnoti Yatchat Yut Kramatishvaraha. grihit vaitani samyati vayur gandham, can't see probably this one, ivas, ivasayat. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aroma. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking on another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped around the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. This is all unknown to impersonalist philosophy. They think that liberation comes when you become free from ego. But ego literally means I am. So you become liberated when you don't exist anymore. But then you need relationship. Everyone needs a relationship. And Prabhupada says, if you don't have a relationship with another person, then you'll get a pet. You'll have a relationship with a cat or a bird or a dog, or some people have relationships with snakes. I read one story about a person who had a python as a pet. And the python used to sleep curled up on the end of the bed. And then over a period of a few days, the person, when he'd wake up in the morning, the python was lying all the way up, full length up the bed next to him.
Sizing him up.
Sizing him up. And he thought, oh, maybe he's sick or something. What's wrong? So he goes to the vet and he says, I got this pet python and he's acting strangely. He's lying next to me on the bed instead of curled up at the end. And the vet said, get rid of him immediately. He's sizing you up. He's going to eat you. He's going to swallow you. But people have these, they need some attachment. They need some relationship. We all need relationships. But the difficulty is, until and unless we get, as the verse says in the fourth chapter, by virtue of complete knowledge, unless we get complete knowledge, we don't understand things as they are. And complete knowledge entails the simple logical conclusion that if there is a source of everything, and if within that which emanates from that source there is form and personality, there must be form and personality in the source. But because people have such terrible experiences from material life, and nobody really wants to fully admit that because they don't have anything else. They're desperate. They're desperately looking for happiness in a situation in which there is no happiness. There's only increasing miseries. But they still think, oh, somehow or another we'll get beyond all this and everything will be all right. On the train down yesterday, there was a lady, she got a phone call sitting, we were at a table, and this lady got a phone call. Somebody had some terrible backache or something, and she was saying, oh, have you done this, have you done that? And you just do this and do that. And then the phone call was over and she was like, what can I do? And she picks up a book and starts reading again. And then I noticed actually she was quite concerned, and she started looking out the window, and I could see she was really worried about, can you not hear me? Oh, sorry. It's this thick voice, thick throat. I'm sorry. She was really worried because it's just one misery after the other, and there's ultimately no solution. There's some trade-off that we make and carry on, hoping that things will get better. But things never get better because dukkhalayam ashashvatam. The material world is a temporary place full of miseries. So therefore, it's such a relief to come in contact with Krishna consciousness and start hearing about reality, that this life is not the real life. This life is an artificial situation. And Prabhupada used to say Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. Whereas this material existence is an artificial imposition on the mind. And we've been getting one artificial imposition after another since time immemorial, passing through 8,400,000 species of life over and over and over again in so many different combinations and permutations. All of it, ahankara vimudatma. Ahankara vimuda atma. The atma becomes vimuda, very foolish, as a result of the bewilderment of the false ego. So Brahma, he got bewildered by his false ego, thinking, oh, I'm Brahma. I've got these amazing potencies. I can play this trick on Krishna, and he'll be confused. He'll be bewildered. But there was no way that was going to happen. No way that could happen. No way it can ever happen. Krishna is wonderful, always wonderful, always beautiful, always attractive in such a beguiling way. And to be able to have this simple process that we have of simply hearing and chanting about Krishna, hearing and chanting, we enter into relationship with Krishna, and Krishna reciprocates with us in that relationship. It's an experiential process that cannot be denied. You cannot deny that you take one step towards Krishna and he takes 100 steps towards you in your life. And this all happens, this can only happen by coming in contact with a lover of Krishna. I read this purport a lot, and at the end of the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada talks about the study of Bhagavad Gita. I mean, we're talking about Bhagavatam, but just from Bhagavad Gita, where is it here? One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee. Because in the beginning of the 4th chapter, it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna and not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and finally gets a devotee's association, one naturally begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By the advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God. And Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one's study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy. There's no other way. This is never open to anyone except devotees. And you can't get this knowledge, you can't get this understanding, you can't get this experience unless you come in contact with a pure devotee of the Lord, directly or indirectly. People say, oh, you're also fortunate you saw Srila Prabhupada, you met Srila Prabhupada. Well, that's true. There's no question that what an inconceivable stroke of good fortune that one directly comes in contact with a personality like Srila Prabhupada. But I always stress to people that, well, yeah, we saw Srila Prabhupada. Not everybody met Srila Prabhupada personally. I mean, in those days, I mean, like now, it's a wonderful thing that the ISKCON gurus that always make a point of being present at the initiation of their disciples. But it wasn't like that in Prabhupada's day. You'd join a temple and you'd serve for however long the period was, and then you'd get recommended for initiation. The temple president would write a letter to Srila Prabhupada and saying, Bhakta so-and-so is ready for initiation, Bhaktin so-and-so. Prabhupada would write back, I'm very happy to accept them as my disciples. Their initiated names will be, this is to the temple president or the GBC, you kindly conduct the ceremony, chant on their beads, and give them their names. And in that way, we've got God brothers and God sisters. A Guru Charana Padma never met Srila Prabhupada, never even saw him in the flesh. And she's one of the staunchest, most fixed up devotees you'd ever see. So we would be sometimes, and not everybody would get to go to where Srila Prabhupada was. He didn't visit every temple. Once he'd start to visit it, he'd go to one place and devotees would come there. Like he'd go to the manor and devotees would come from all over Europe to see him. And they'd see him. This is my point. They'd see Prabhupada. You'd see Prabhupada come out of his rooms and go for his morning walk. Sometimes you may be lucky enough to go on the morning walk. You'd see him come back from the morning walk. You'd see him greet the deities. You'd see him get on the Vyasasana and accept Guru Puja. And then you'd all sit down and you'd listen to what he had to say. And then I say to people, it's like, what are we now? 49 years since Srila Prabhupada left. So, yeah, we might have seen Prabhupada, but we have not seen him for 49 years. But what we have is this treasure trove of books and recordings, and we hear him. We hear him. And through that hearing process, something undeniable and indescribable happens to the heart. That one's own natural love for Krishna, which is now dormant within the heart, awakens or is aroused by this process, simply by hearing from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada in one lecture on Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Tadam Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamupayanti Te. He says this word priti, it means love. He said, you cannot even take up the process of regulated devotional service unless your love for Krishna has been reawakened. And that love is reawakened through the contact with the lotus feet of a pure devotee of the Lord. Through, well, of course, through any means, but most importantly, through hearing. So that's why these pastimes, they are imbued with love. And Lord Chaitanya himself, in the first chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a verse that says, Lord Chaitanya has established the Yuga Dharma of Harinam Sankirtan, and he's garlanded this whole planet with prema. Prema bhakti is very rarely seen. Bhakti is being practiced all the time. But pure, unalloyed prema bhakti is not manifest willy-nilly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or a personality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, appears in every Kali Yuga. Harinam Sankirtan is the Yuga Dharma for every Kali Yuga. But Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only appears once in a day of Brahma. In the Kali Yuga, immediately after the appearance of Lord Krishna in the Dwapara Yuga. And he propagates the Harinam Sankirtan imbued with prema bhakti. So then we have the line from Narottam's song that says, Golokera prema dana Harinama Sankirtan. Prema dan means a donation, a gift. Prema dana. Golokera, from Golokera prema dan. This gift of love has come in the form of Harinam Sankirtan. So it does us all a lot of benefit to contemplate this on a regular basis, to understand that this is not some artificial process. This is not some fabricated thing that somebody's foisting on us to make money. I remember at the time when I, just before I got involved with devotees, I'd gone to a transcendental meditation center. A transcendental meditation center. Oh goodness, don't make me laugh. And just to get the seed mantra of Ayin, you had to pay $35. But you go down to the Hare Krishna Center. I walked into the Hare Krishna Center and somebody gave me a mantra card and said, chant this mantra. That's the meaning of a sampradaya. That's sampradaya means sam means complete knowledge. Pradaya means freely given. Freely given. So there are many. There like the whole impersonalism has a parampara, but it's not a sampradaya because you don't get complete knowledge. You don't get complete knowledge. You're just listening to the lectures of Prabhupada on the process of devotional service as described by Kapila Dev, that become the teachings of Lord Kapila. And the very first lecture, Prabhupada is at great pains to explain there is a very clear distinction between impersonalist Sankhya philosophy and personalist Sankhya philosophy. That the propagator of this philosophy is Devahuti Putra Kapila rather than the atheist Kapila. And the atheist Kapila, he gives a Sankhya analysis of the elements of existence, but he falls short and doesn't give Bhagavan. But without Bhagavan, without the understanding that there is there's a personal supreme being, then ultimately everything is futile. Everything is nonsense and meaningless and purposeless. But when we get introduced to the loving devotional service of the Lord, and we understand, and this is the most amazing thing, that here is the supreme almighty being who wants a relationship with me, who wants me to be in a relationship with him, who knows that an eternal relationship between he and I exists, but that I, under the bewildering influence of the false ego, have absolutely no awareness of that, total forgetfulness of that. It never ceases to amaze me that here is the supreme almighty God, because we all come from this Judeo-Christian background, and we are given this awesome, fearful idea of this inconceivable being who actually just turns out to be a grumpy old man. I always pick that up when you go and you see here's God, and well, why is he old? If he's the source of everything, he's the source of time. Why is he old? How come time is forcing him to become old? Time is forcing me to become old. But along with that, you get this really fearful conception of God, that he's going to punish you and you're going to suffer and you go to hell forever. It's like, but he loves you. He loves you. But because he loves you, he's prepared to put you in hell forever. It just is insane. So therefore, it's also very kind of shocking when you realize that here he is. Here's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he wants you to come back into a personal relationship with him. And he goes out of his way in so many ways to facilitate that for you. And then we have this situation where Brahma, who's you and I could be Brahma. We have been Brahma. We could be Brahma again. And we could in this become bewildered like this and just forget who this personality is. But here he is, you see him, this little boy with his food in his hand, just looking for his friends. When Krishna just pulled down the curtain of Yoga Maya again, and Brahma was able to see, oh yes, actually, Krishna's made this illusion. But here he is, he's just a little boy. And this little boy, he wants us to come and play with him again. He wants us to live with him and dance with him and sing with him and eat with him. He wants this. He wants this. So we are very fortunate people, chosen people, to have this opportunity. So drink deep of this deathless nectar. Drink deeply. Really go deep into hearing and chanting. That's what the time of life is for. As life goes on, you just want to go deeper into this. Deeper and deeper and deeper, and you don't care. Just lost in love of Krishna. And it's not, as Prabhupada, and I repeat it so often, it is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This is reality. Krishna is real. Krishna is not the figment of someone's imagination. Nobody could dream this stuff up anyway. Like, what do they say? That reality is always stranger than fiction. People can rack their brains to come up with some fictitious thing. But then when you hear reality, it just, fictitious stories just become stupid, insignificant little things. But when you start to, the curtain begins to come up and you start to realize that everything that is described about Krishna is true. Then, then you're addicted. Then you're addicted to Krishna. And that's what Prabhupada said to John Lennon. John Lennon said, how do you find a guru? Prabhupada said, you find that person who's addicted to Krishna. So let's all get addicted. sit around. People sit around and drink together and take drugs together, and they get addicted. And all we have to do is sit around and hear about Krishna, and we get addicted. We get addicted. But the nature of this addiction is like it said right at the beginning. Get high and stay high forever. You don't come down. There's no come down. There's no hangover. There's no deleterious effects of this at all. It just gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and more relishable, especially in the association of devotees. This is lovely. It's so nice everybody came this morning, all these people. A little sangha like this, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people. It's actually a good size. It's a good size for a sangha. I mean, we're just this big sangha. It's very nice to get together and know, oh, there's so many devotees. And they have the sacred sound now. They get 4,000 devotees come. And they're all in one big hotel together and they're having kirtan. And that's fantastic. But day in, day out, you're just with who you're with on the ground, wherever you are. And it's never usually a big group of people. And once you get beyond a certain number of people in a group, it's hard to keep the cohesion of the group together. So this is very nice. I keep saying to Priya Kun, what if we had 100 places like this all over England, or 200 or 500? Why not? Why not? And I come here every year and I look at that map of Kent, and you go from Rochester, Chatham, what's the other one there? Rochester, Chatham, Gillingham. Then you go on around and there's Broadstairs and Horn Bay and then Margate and all, maybe easy 20 large towns could have a little center like this. And this is how I think Prabhupada envisioned ISKCON. A few big centers of excellence in deity worship and training in so many ways. But then a lot of little centers where an intimate group of devotees are practicing this process of hearing and chanting together. Does anyone have any questions or comments on anything?
We can go in the room first, and then we can go to Zoom. So, anybody in the room?
Yes.
Thank you for group.
Thank
you for coming.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming.
I just thought it was a profound point you made in the beginning of class, where you said that people are suffering, and it's very difficult for them to admit that they're suffering because they think that this life is the all in all.
Yes.
And that very much reminded me of my grandmother, who passed away like a year or two ago, and I just remembered I would call her, as her health was failing, and I remember calling her once, and I asked her, "How are you?" and she describes how she just lies in bed and she has to crawl to the bathroom and back. She can't even walk to the bathroom. And then at the end of it she says, "But it's okay, I'm okay."
I'm okay.
Yeah. And that always kind of reminds me of this principle that, you know, even if we're suffering really, really badly, if we think that this life is the all in all, if we don't have that relationship with Krishna and that aspiration to go back to Godhead, then we will just sort of sweep the skeletons under the carpet.
Yeah. To the end of it all, to the last moment, trying to extract some happiness from the situation. It's a strong point, isn't it? And everyone's acting. Everyone's pretending. Because everyone else is pretending, then I got to pretend that I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm happy. I'm this, I'm that. But everybody's acting. Everybody's pretending to themselves and to others, and then it's all collusion. And very rarely does a jiva wake up in this dream and say, "Hold on, what? There's got to be more than this. This is crazy." Very rare. And then out of Manushanam Sahasreshu Kastya Jitati Siddhaya Yatatamapi Siddhanam Kastyan Mam Veditatvata. Out of many, many thousands of people who endeavor for some kind of perfection in knowledge, hardly one has any understanding of transcendence. And out of many, many hundreds of thousands, millions, trillions of living entities who have some awareness of transcendence, hardly one knows Krishna. At best, they come to the impersonal, as we've been saying. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyate. Prabhupada says about that verse that he's cultivating knowledge and he comes to the point where he's presented with the idea that, yes, everything comes from a person. And at first he's puzzled because everyone's just dealing with the energies. Everybody's trying to exploit the energies and resources of the Lord. And then the idea that all this comes from a person is very difficult for people to take on board because they're suffering. And then there's that people lose their faith in God because they're suffering. If there's a God, then why am I suffering? Why is he doing this to me? And then there can't be a God. Not a loving God wouldn't do that. So then they just dismiss the whole idea of God because of a poor fund of knowledge. And then that example of your grandmother is very lucid, having to crawl from the bed to the bathroom and back again. But I'm all right. I'm all right.
We also have people in cancer wards, don't we? And they've had the operation because they've had throat cancer, and they're literally smoking out of the hole in the neck, just trying to squeeze some enjoyment out of the body.
Oh my God.
Yes. Desperate times.
Desperate times.
I'm just
Dire straits.
finding it paradoxical that, you know, we have this illusion and we pretend, you know, like people in general in the material world, we pretend that we are okay and actually I am happy and I'm successful and whatnot. But at the same time, you know, and it's not different for atheists or theists. It's the same. They all pretending, and you know, I'm really cool, you know. But why do people still cultivate some sort of religion if it doesn't really matter? You know, the mentality is the same for atheists or religious people. They seem to.
Well, that's why Bhagavatam begins with this statement. This Bhagavatam completely kicks out all materialistic, motivated religion. people, it's like it's a bet. All right, I'll accept that there's God and he has to be placated, and that he's the source of everything. So therefore, whatever I want, I'll get from him. But that doesn't really last too long with people either. They come and they get their financial problems solved, or their emotional problems get solved, or whatever distress they're in, but then they just give it up again. It's because of lust and greed. Any way to satisfy my lust and my greed. If God can do it, well, okay, what do I do? Where do I sign up here? What's it cost me? Or what do I have to do to get him to do what I want him to do for me? And they don't have any understanding. They just think that, oh, God is the satisfier of my desires, or he should be. Because the materialistic life is totally self-centered. I, me, and mine. This is again, back to the false ego. Everybody's just out for themselves. At the end of this, in Krishna book, at the end of it, where is it? At the end of the prayers, yeah, at the end of Lord Brahma's prayers, Prabhupada gives a philosophical. Sukadeva Goswami told Maharaj Pariksit that there's a little bit more. No, this is enough. Sukadeva Goswami told Maharaj Pariksit that every living entity is actually most attached to his own self. Every living entity. Outward paraphernalia such as home, family, friends, country, society, wealth, opulence, and reputation are all only secondary in pleasing the living entity. They please only because they bring pleasure to the self. For this reason, one is self-centered and is attached to his body and self more than he is to relatives like wife, children, and friends. If there is some immediate danger to one's own person, he first of all takes care of himself, then others. That is natural. That means he loves his own self more than anything else. The next important object of affection after his own self is his material body. A person who has no information of the spirit soul is very much attached to his material body, so much so that even in old age, he wants to preserve the body in so many artificial ways, thinking that his old and broken body can be saved. Everyone is working hard. Everyone is working hard, day and night, just to give pleasure to his own self, under either the bodily or spiritual concept of life. We are attached to material possessions because they give pleasure to the senses or to the body. The attachment to the body is there only because the I, the spirit soul, is within the body. Similarly, when one is further advanced, he knows that the spirit soul is pleasing because it is part and parcel of Krishna. Ultimately, it is Krishna who is pleasing and all attractive. He is the supersoul of everything. And in order to give us this information, Krishna descends and tells us that the all-attractive center is he himself. Without being an expansion of Krishna, nothing can be attractive. So then you have in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna's giving the verses Rasoham apsakuntaya pravasmi sashishuya. No, there's one verse where the next verse has the line, Jivanam sarvabhutanam. I am the life of all that lives. And in that sense, we understand we are souls, but we also have a soul. Krishna is the soul of the soul. Krishna is the life of our very being. We are part and parcel of Krishna. And therefore, we do not have a complete sense of ourselves until we become conscious of Krishna again. Prabhupada used to say, consciousness means Krishna consciousness. If you are not Krishna conscious, you're not fully conscious. Because mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvam itapatam sutre gani, what? I'm sick. Sutre mani ganariva. There we go. Sutre mani ganariva. Everything's resting on Krishna, including me. My existence is totally dependent upon Krishna. Does anyone else have any questions in the room? We can see if...
I mean, it's very profound. Like consciousness, our very being, our very awareness of something very deep and profound that lives, that's eternal inside us, and our relationship with physical matter, with something that's eternal, but that's linked to something even more eternal. It's inside out, but living. As you said, that reality exists and it's there eternally, constant even now, and our awareness needs to go back to it.
Yes.
That's its beingness. It's very profound.
Yeah.
So suffering ceases to stop when that is understood. But we have suffering because it's awareness to physical suffering. But actually the beingness exists, but it's paradoxical, like everyone says, it's difficult, but it's there. It's just exists. And our sitting in it a little bit, like surrendering, we use words, but actually experiencing a little bit of it, just listening, first of all takes you back to think, okay, that's...
These things are meant for contemplation and realization. It takes time. But it was really nice what you just said. It's clear there's been some penetration into your consciousness, and you're aware that this is real, and this is profound, and it's undeniable. The exchange of love between the devotee and Krishna is tangible and real, but to the outsider, it appears a mystery. Krishna's Naham Prakasha Sarvasha Yoga Maya Samavrita Mudo Yam Nabijanati Logo Yam Jam Avyaya. That he's never revealed to foolish and unintelligent people who think that he's assumed this personality, that this is just another Maya form. Krishna never revealed. He's revealed only to the devotees. So once you open your heart to Krishna, then, like you say, you begin to experience the profundity of it all, that it's real. Yeah. You've come a long way. Not just to get here this morning. You're doing well. Just keep, never give up, always show up. It's a simple process. Anyone, and it's open to anyone. There's no material prerequisite. Prabhupada used to say, God has given you the ear, you come and you sit and you hear. And go on hearing. And it goes deeper, it penetrates deeper and deeper and deeper as the years go by.
I also find it interesting, the word to hear in Sanskrit has the word Ravana in it. So Shravana is actually to hear, but it's actually, so sometimes our hearing needs to understand that reflection and something that's not right or wrong but by hearing we get to truth, and through truth we get to something that's much more profound than just a physical truth or something that's true or correct. It's actually good or beneficial and happy. There's a feeling that's beyond a feeling.
Yeah.
From hearing something that's actually rather than meaning something bad, taxing, but through that badness is something profound, sravana, and that's the entrance of something. So without that, without hearing, our consciousness doesn't tend to alter.
Yeah, you can't enter into transcendence without hearing transcendental sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, you will hear, but you'll only hear mundane things, and you'll become more and more entangled in the material world as a result. So Narad says to Vyas in his instructions on the Bhagavatam, does not a thing which causes a disease, if applied therapeutically, cure that same disease? And what he's talking about is the hearing process, because everything we learn by hearing. But then there's perfective sound, and then there's defective sound. And we're exposed to defective sound over and over and over again, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And this affects our consciousness so that all of our desires and all of our aspirations become material. And we become so deeply attached that then Vita Raga Maya, we have to become free from it. Attachment, fear, and anger as we come back to spiritual life. And the first fear is fear of our own spiritual identity. And the anger that comes up in us is because of all the frustration that we experience as a result of being exposed to defective sound, nonsense philosophies, ridiculous explanations of reality, incomplete logic. Whereas Krishna consciousness is complete and perfect. And you can put it to the test over and over again, and it always comes through. Hare Krishna.
Anybody else in the room? Share a realization or ask a question? Okay then. Into Zoom land. Could you raise a hand if we can see you, or raise Zoom hand if we can't see you, if you'd like to ask Bhagavat Ashraya a question on the topic or share a realization.
Jennifer. And who's the other one?
Lorna.
Lorna. All right, Jennifer.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your talk. I wondered if you could expand a little on when you mentioned that Krishna with us is the soul of our soul. Because I was listening to something the other day, which I can't quote because of my terrible memory, but it was something along the lines of how the supersoul sanctions everything we do, but the being, the living entity, must suffer the fruits, either good or bad, of those actions. I'm a terrible devotee, and
What's the last thing you said?
I'm a terrible devotee, but I need to.
You're not a terrible devotee.
I need to build, or I need to have sort of very quick faith because I'm in a bad situation mentally. I know what I should be doing. Anyway, that's my question. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Well, just on that last point, before we go back to the question, you say, I know what I should be doing. Well, you've got to be careful of this should business, because should is a modal verb which is used for stating emphaticness. It's a must. And there's lots of shoulds recommended to us. And we need to get it all in order and not try to do what we should be doing before we should do what we... You get confused, you get bewildered. So then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what should I do if I can't do what I should do? And then what you should do is you do what you can. And you always have to start with, what can you do? What is it that I can do now, here, in my present situation, that's going to bring some relief, some progress for me? Whatever you can do. Krishna consciousness is very, very profound. I seem to be bringing people back to this, what I'm going to read now, so often. That I bring myself back to it, because it's like you read Prabhupada's books, you read something, and then you read something, and you think, how did I miss this? But you weren't ready for it before. But when you're ready, then something just jumps out at you. And in the purport to chapter 3, verse 31, Krishna says in the verse, persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions, and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive activities. We're all in the bondage of our fruitive activities. This is, in terms of this life, it's called parabdha karma. In Nectar of Devotion, we read about how there are so many seeds of desire within the heart, sinful desire seeds. And some are lying dormant, some are fructifying, some are growing, and some are now, like this body and the state that we're in. This is called parabdha. This is mature fruit of past fruitive activities. So we're all in the bondage of fruitive activity. So here's what Prabhupada says in this purport about regulation and injunction. Interesting word, injunction, junction. It actually goes right back to the root of yoga. A junction is where things join. Right? So an injunction is something which, if you follow it, it'll join you up to something. So anyway, it's just a short purport. But the last two sentences are very important. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom, and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita, but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive actions. Now listen to this. But an ordinary person with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, that person will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not like the mundane education system. It's not like the competitive world of material activities. There's no point at which you don't make the cut. It's not like we get to the round of 16 and everyone else is a schmuck. Everyone's a loser. No one's a loser in Krishna consciousness. The first thing Krishna says to Arjuna in the second chapter, when he begins, he says, now I'm going to talk to you about how you become free from fruitive activities. And that's where he introduces the word yoga. Verse number 39. He says, now I'm going to talk, I've given you all this analytical study of the nature of the soul and so on. Now I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get free from fruitive activities, the results of your bondage to the material world. And then he says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. Go figure. There is nothing we know of that doesn't suffer from diminution or loss in the material world. It's always attrition. It's always breakdown. But Krishna says no. And the slightest thing you do is to your eternal benefit. So you don't worry about what you can't do. You focus on what you can do. Do the best you can where you are with what you've got and leave the rest to Krishna, because Krishna reciprocates with the most insignificant endeavor. There's a beautiful story in the storefront of how the bum comes in, the drunken, dirty man comes in, uses the toilet, and then goes out again. And then he comes back a little later with some toilet rolls. And he puts them into the toilet and comes back and offers some respect to Prabhupada, and off he goes. Prabhupada says, just see, his devotional service has begun. Well, so Jennifer, take the rod from your back. You don't need to punish yourself like this. You do what you can, and you do it with love for Krishna, and Krishna will accept. And he will unburden your mind. Take the burdens out of your mind. Because, back to your question, he's the super soul in the heart. And he's aware of everything about you. But like he says also, I am the life of all that lives. That's inconceivable to us. The first point we have to embrace, if we really want to understand, is that this philosophy is inconceivable. You can't figure it out yourself. You can't get to the bottom of it, because you can't get to the bottom of Krishna. You can't contain Krishna. You can't get your head around Krishna. You just have to accept. And the first thing you have to accept is that Krishna loves you unconditionally. Krishna only loves, and he's unconditional in his love. He's always loved you, and he always will love you. He's not keeping score. When you see Krishna in the temple, you might not have been to the temple for quite a while. But if you accept that the deity is Krishna, then he's always glad to see you. Oh, he's just a statue. He's not just a statue. I don't tell this story very often, but a couple of weeks before we had our fire sacrifice, and I took a day off, and I went to Soho Street and went to had a meal in the restaurant, and went upstairs and took darshan and Radhaland and Ashraya. In those days, there were two pillars in the temple room, about 5 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And the back wall, Prabhupada's Vyasasana was down the front, So the back wall was solid, and you could stand right at the back and through the pillars have darshan around Londonishwar. So I went and I had darshan there. And then I thought, oh, well, I wonder what's going on. And I went up and walked through the building, and I came across Janananda, now Janananda Maharaj. He was there as like the day manager of the temple, and in the whole what had happened with the fall down of Jyotirtha and the change of GBC, Bhagavan becoming the GBC and so forth. A lot of devotees went through very difficult situations, and he was one of them. And he was really unhappy, and was saying how he just wanted to go. Jayapataka Maharaj had made him an offer to go to Malaysia, and he just wanted to go. And then I was thinking, well, all right. So I had to leave then. And I thought, well, I was walking down the stairs and I thought, well, who's going to be the president here? Who's going to do the job? So I went back into the temple room and I stood at the back and I looked at Rattle and I said to them, well, if you want me, I'm here. And I swear, little London Ishwara just flashed his eyes. He went, and I stood there and I didn't want to, let myself believe that happened, but it happened. No doubt in my mind. He just went. Because the deity is Krishna. We know that from the story of Shakshi Gopal, where the Brahmin, he makes the proposition to Krishna, you have to come and bear witness to the promise that the old man made to me. And the deity said to him, well, I'm just a stone statue, I can't move. And so he said, well, if you can speak, you can walk. And she says, yes, all right, very good. So my point is, Krishna only loves us. And it may well be that it's like we're coming back into the first time we take darshan of the Lord in this lifetime. The first time we're introduced to the deity of the Lord, it might be the first time we've been in a temple for countless creations. But still the Lord is smiling, happy to see you. He's never frowning like, well, where have you been? Come on, finally you're here. Rascal, what? No. He's always glad to see you because he loves you. And you have to get beyond the barrier in your mind where you think, I'm not lovable. Because love in the material world is totally conditional. And we know that if I don't act in this way or that way or the other, I won't be loved. I won't be lovable. I'll be bad. I'll be a bad person. And this just plays havoc with our mind and our emotions, because it's an artificial imposition on the mind. Krishna loves us, and he comes with us on our sojourn in the material world as our chaperone. And he gives us, and anywhere we want to go and anything we want to do, he'll take us there. But he's just waiting for us to turn back to him. And as soon as he does, as soon as we do, then he reciprocates with us. And no matter how much disability we may be in as a result of our material conditioning, he doesn't pay any attention to that. Nobody knows the material energy like Krishna does. No one. Krishna's omniscient. Krishna is the material energy. So he knows what the material energy can do to you. And he's not passing judgment on our external condition, no matter how crippled we may be. We make the endeavor. We make the endeavor in our crippled state to do something for Krishna, and that wins Krishna's heart. And then nobody has the wherewithal to help us get out of the situation we're in. And Krishna's promise is that you just surrender to me. You just surrender to me, and I'll protect you. And you can't fudge that. You can't fudge surrender. Well, you can put on a show, but that's all it'll be, is a show. And Krishna can see through that. So he's just interested in what's happening in the core of your heart. And due to being bound up in so many ways, we might not be able to express what we want to express towards Krishna. But you do it in your heart. And that's all Krishna takes notice of. And then gradually, he just adjusts the whole thing till one day the material world disappears. This illusion goes away. And we're back where we came from, in our original relationship with Krishna. That's a guarantee for anyone. Doesn't matter what the starting point is. That was another joke, the Irish joke, I think I told you, about the tourist goes up to the Irishman in Dublin and asks directions somewhere. He says, "Oh, you want to go there, do you?" "Well, I wouldn't start from here." Where are you going to start from? You got to think, "Oh, I've got to do this and this and this and this because I'm a terrible person." You're not a terrible person. Yes, you're a pure spiritual being, covered. Yes, Sava.
When he was saying that, it just made me think how Krishna relieves us of things, and how does that happen? You know, that it's amazing that you may be struggling or not in great consciousness, and then you get Krishna relieves you, and he, you know, he knows everything about you, and suddenly you know something that you didn't know before.
Yeah.
You realize something because he, you know, it's like the doctor. He just gives you.
He's the ultimate doctor.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate mystic. He's omnipotent and omniscient.
Very person.
Yes.
And especially like with the deities, you know, in the West, we did not have any experience of deity worship. But the way Prabhupada approached the deities and the way he just told us, yes, to offer what you can and to serve the deities with love. It wasn't. There wasn't that thing of, you know, you're doing something to get something back. You know, like we're putting money in the box, or you know, because we want something. Or you go to Krishna with everything, okay, but basically Prabhupada gave us a taste for serving.
Yes.
Not just to get something in particular.
Service for service.
I mean, sometimes
For Krishna's sake.
you are in a state where you have to beg Krishna to help you or something, but he was, it was amazing. It's amazing how he introduced us to Krishna.
Yes, it's amazing. Constantly amazing.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you very much. That was wonderful. I've taken a lot from what you said. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
You're going to
Very
come and
grateful.
see us tomorrow?
Yes, God willing.
And
Inshallah.
huh?
Inshallah. Sorry. God willing. Krishna
God
willing.
willing.
I will. Yes.
And then on Monday, you can make an appointment and come and talk to us if you like.
I'd be very privileged and grateful to do that. Yes, please.
What a
Oh.
lovely, well-mannered person. Thank you.
Okay, we can just take the question from Lorna, and then we'll have to wind it down.
Sorry.
Because it's 25 to 10 now.
Oh.
So Lorna, did you have a question?
Hi, Krishna. Yeah, I'll be very quick. I just want to say thank you for such an enlightening and I found it really resonated with me. A lot of what you spoke about today was things that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days, especially Krishna's inconceivable potencies and his pastimes. And also, I've been thinking a lot about the false ego as well. My question is, could you maybe help me understand the difference between false ego and personality and kind of the other things that we have going on, like our mind and our intelligence?
In 30 seconds or less.
Or maybe I can ask you tomorrow when I see you, or maybe.
Well, yeah, actually, it's a very good question, but it's a complex answer. But you think of the concept of assumption. Assume. We assume a false ego, and the false ego is a very malleable thing. So we can change our personality. And we change our consciousness through association. And then whatever state of consciousness we're in at the end of a lifetime, that state will acquire in a gross body in the next life. And in that life, we'll have a different personality. But that's all part of the assumption of false ego. That's a part of the covering of the soul. In a simple example is, say you've got a ball of Play-Doh, nice ball of Play-Doh, and you've got a diamond, and you push the diamond into the center of the ball and round it out. And then you can make the Play-Doh into a tree. You roll it back up into a ball. You can make it into a dog and roll it up into a ball. Then you can make it into a human being and roll it up. And everybody knows, even trees have personalities. Wherever there's life, there's a manifestation of a certain kind of personality. But that's a personality that's arisen due to the molding of the consciousness. Now, I didn't give the example of the subtle body, which is immediately covering the soul. But first of all, there's the false ego, which covers us. But if you take away the ball and pull out the diamond's just like it always was. It was just covered. So we have an original personality. We have an original identity, which is defined by our relationship with Krishna, our particular individual relationship with Krishna. That is where we find our eternal identity. But so long as we're under the influence of the false ego, then we assume different forms and personalities life after life.
Okay, so our mission is then to find that connection back with Krishna, to find our original form.
Well, we don't even have to find it. We just have to engage in the process, and everything becomes revealed in due course of time.
That's wonderful. Thank you. It's
Hare
really helpful.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You have one more thing to say, Sava?
I'm just thinking of false ego coverings are so staged.
So,
When you just said you can change your
personality.
personality, it's like a gut reaction. I just said I can't. And I thought, I wonder how long I've been thinking I can't.
Yeah.
And then you suddenly, like in a flash, you kind of hear yourself, or you see yourself, or you understand.
You're not that.
Yeah, just a false ego.
Okay. Vanchakopatruvyascha kripa sindhoveva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.